President Trump on his way to storm-ravaged areas as Harvey victims start cleaning up the mess from that monster storm. And while the water may be receding, costs are still mounting and energy prices spiking. Now some predicting Harvey's wrath will hit the entire economy. How bad could it get? Hi, everybody. I'm Dagan McDowell. This is Bulls and Bears. The Bulls and Bears this week, Gary B. Smith, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Hadley Heath Manning and Adrian Elrod. Welcome to everybody.
Thank
John, you're a Texan, and you say this isn't just a Gulf Coast event. We will all feel it.
We will. And first, I have a lot of family and friends that are down there in the great state that are suffering right now, and our thoughts and prayers certainly go out to everybody that is down there. When you try to separate, though, that devastation, and it is horrific, you look about the economy, which in Houston, which is a $500 billion economy, and how it affects the greater economy. Over 20% of the nation's refinery ability has been shut down. The Colonial Pipeline that goes from Houston to New Jersey that carries most of the gasoline is actually not even able to run at times because there's not enough fuel coming from Lake Charles into Houston. That is going to affect gasoline prices. That is going to affect oil prices. The immediate loss in Houston is going to be more of a regional event as far as job loss and as far as economic destruction. Overall, though, once you start seeing the Fed step in, the state step in, and insurance step in, you will start seeing this slowly recover. What happened in New Orleans is a bit different because you had people leave and didn't come back. It's not apples to apples comparison because in Houston you have a much greater diversity when you talk about the River Oaks and the Post Oaks districts down to low-income districts. This place is going to recover. At that point, we'll start to see a bit of an economic boost from this.
Short run, Gary B., we have seen an economic impact from Florida to Indiana up into the Northeast by gasoline prices going up nationwide, up about 17 cents a gallon in a week, up even more in a lot of states.
You're right, Dick, and I guess it all depends on the time frame one is looking at. Look, you've had an economy that surprisingly is bigger than the country of Poland, almost devastated. And we've seen the pictures, are seeing the pictures. It's horrific. Now, that being said, I think all the effects you're talking about and John alluded to are short-term more than anything else. We've already seen gasoline prices go up. But if any of the previous hurricanes, tropical depressions whatsoever are an example, if you laid a chart of the GDP over when those disasters occurred, you can't even tell that they happened. That's how big our economy is. That's how big it recovers. Look, what will happen in Houston, the devastation aside, and it's horrific, is people won't obviously go to the movies. They won't go to Starbucks. They'll take that money, though, whether it's from them or their insurance company, and instead hire contractors, roofers, water displacement people. The money gets spent. It just moves into different areas. In fact, after Hurricane Sandy, the Department of Commerce ran a study, and they found almost no economic impact of that horrific event. In fact, they saw a net increase in jobs because of all the new construction people hired. So yes, short term, horrible. Longer term, even out a month or so, the economy won't feel it at all.
As we've seen with individuals and the human spirit, such incredible resiliency, Hadley, and that really speaks to the health of the economy long run. This could be a boom for that part of the nation.
Well, I don't believe in the broken window fallacy, right? The money that people are spending on rebuilding, it would be better if they were spending it on movie tickets and Starbucks. And this is a tragedy. This is unquestionably, natural disasters are destructive. But I think one thing that, as we stand back and take stock of the loss here, we also ought to take stock of just the amazing acts of philanthropy, charity, generosity, speaking volumes about the hearts of people in Texas and across this nation. I wish that we could measure, the blood, the meals, the favors, the time, the money that people are giving to one another, because we truly are a philanthropic society, and that goes hand in hand with being a capitalistic society. We want to strive to meet the wants and needs of others, paid or unpaid, to do it. And I think this event, as sad as it is, the hope coming out of it is that people are helping one another.
Jonas, most of the rebuilding money money will come from the federal government, and it will be, by most estimates, north of what Katrina got. New Orleans got $120 billion. North of that, almost certainly for Houston from the national government. And if that comes in with speed, that really helps the recovery.
Yeah, and that's the problem with economic data is you capture, I mean, the economic data that we have that's decent, it captures money spent. So if you spend over $100 billion in a region, it's going to boost the economy on numbers, but to get back to the broken windows thing, it doesn't help if people aren't happy. Like, you don't want to spend money on a broken window to replace it. You don't want to spend money on health care when it boils right down to it. You want to go buy another TV or see a movie or do something fun. So that part we don't measure. So it is not good for anybody. You are miserable, but you're spending more money that you don't want to be spending anyway to fix all the things that are ruined now in your life. So you don't see it in the economic data, but it is not a net positive. It's a net negative for the region, if not the whole country. We just don't measure how much satisfaction you're getting out of living, essentially. That's one of the weaknesses of economic data. But the longer-term effects would be insurance. How much does it cost to live in this area going forward? Are there going to be regulation changes? Building code changes. So those are things that could actually have a more, and those costs going to reflect into this whole economic area where oil and metal and shipping comes in. It's a very key area for the rest of our country if it's expensive to do business there long-term permanent.
But it seems as if, Adrian, that lawmakers, and you are a Democrat, this is one instance where everybody can come together and they know that this is going to require north of $100 billion, $125, $150 billion from the federal government ultimately to rebuild this critical part of the nation. We're now the world's largest exporter of refined product, and that is Houston, and that's critical to the whole economy in this country.
Right, exactly. And look, I am optimistic that Congress will come together when they convene next week and pass an emergency spending bill that essentially funds the first round of funding for the people of Houston and the greater area. But moving forward, I hope that we can find a bipartisan solution to this. I know that some, Vice President Pence in particular, is very focused on offsets for disaster relief. That's what he did several years ago when Katrina hit. So moving forward, we cannot play politics with this. The people of Houston have suffered so much. This is going to be a very long, treacherous rebuilding process. The American people, the entire world will stand with them as they go through this, but we've got to make sure that we don't play politics with this and that they get all the funding that they need.
Well, and John, this does get back to the spirit of the people of Texas and the spirit of the people in and around Houston and the eastern part of Texas. That is ultimately the key in getting people to stay there and rebuilding and sticking it out and making that part of the nation even better than it was before.
Yeah, these are wonderful people down there in Houston and East Texas. They took in tons of refugees from the Katrina, and now they're hit themselves. And Houston has 3 million jobs, 5 times as many as New Orleans. So they have the ability, because of their economy, to rebuild. And I believe that certain sectors are going to do quite well. And this is terrible to say, but when you're just talking about the economy, 1 million cars have been lost in Houston. You're going to see the car industry do quite well. You're going to see Home Depot do quite well. Most importantly, you're going to see the spirit of some great Texans down there. They're going to do quite well in rebuilding their city. And
Gary B., I'm going to give you the final word on this, but if you looked at the market reaction, I think the market reflected in the last week the resiliency of the people of Houston and Texas and this country when it comes to dealing with something like this. We'll get through it and be even better on the other side.
That is reflected in our economy, by the way. Yes, there was some hand-wringing. It was horrible. But then people say, I need to get on with my life and start to rebuild. That's why Houston will survive. That's why our country is still the best country out there.
Thank you, guys and gals.